I started this YouTube channel back in November 2020, and within 6 to 7 months, I had quit my job to become a full-time content creator. Every time I tell people that, they always ask me the same question. How? How did I grow this creative business whilst working a full-time job? And how did I make the jump from working my 9 to 5 to working for myself so quickly? Well, in today's video, I'm gonna take you through the first 6 months of my creator journey, from when I went to uploading my first piece of content all the way through to handing in my notice at my job. I'm gonna break down everything I did each month throughout that period of time. So if you are trying to become a full-time content creator or even a part-time content creator, this video is going to tell you exactly how I did that so that you can steal some of my strategies and use them for yourself. By the way, guys, this video is sponsored by Storyblocks. More on them later. All right, so let's kick off with November 2020. I'm so excited to film this. I don't know if you can tell. There's something about reminiscing on this time what just gets me so excited. I was even reading my journal entries so I could really cast myself back to that time and all that craziness that happened. Because these 6 months that I'm about to break down to you, they were genuinely the most transformative 6 months of my life. So November 2020, for every single month that we talk about, I'm going to talk about 3 specific things. The first thing is my social media strategy. The second will be my monetization strategy. So what was I doing to earn money during that time? And the third thing will be my time management. Because as I mentioned, for my first 6 months in this business, I did have a full-time job, and a rather demanding one at that. So it's November 2020 and I have decided to launch this new brand. This brand was actually called We Side Hustle. Can you let me know in the comments if you've been here since my We Side Hustle days, because you are a true OG. But it was originally called We Side Hustle because I had convinced myself that I needed a separate brand name. This isn't a really important part of this story. I just want to flag it in case you're someone who's holding back from starting your journey because of something really small, like you don't know what to call yourself or you don't know what your brand's going to be called. If this is really stopping you from progressing, then I want you just to make a decision and run with it, because I ended up rebranding to my full name, Jade Beeson, a year into my journey, and the world didn't end. I was able to rebrand and everything was fine. So I launched We Side Hustle. Now, the reason why I started this brand was because I noticed when I was looking for creators who talk about the subjects that I talk about online, I was rarely seeing creators who looked like me, being a Black woman, and who sounded like me, being from England. And I realized there was a diversity gap there that I wanted to fill. I also knew that I had over 8 years experience in marketing. I had built side hustles and businesses before. I'd even built a small Instagram influencer channel before as well. So I was like, do you know what? I've got some knowledge to share here. I'm going to hop online and share it. And believe it or not, guys, back in November 2020, this was not a popular niche. It's probably really hard to imagine because it's such a popular niche now. But back in 2020, it really wasn't popular. The reason why I started creating content about marketing, entrepreneurship, content creation was simply because that was what I knew. That's what my experience is in. That's what my degree is in. So therefore, that was the value that I had to share. And I will be the first one to hold my hand up to say that there was some luck coming into play here, because this was also around the time, everyone remembers what happened in 2020, where there was a huge increase of interest when it came to marketing, personal branding, social media. So it was the perfect storm for me at that time. Now, I decided to launch my brand on Instagram and YouTube, with YouTube being my primary channel. And that has remained the case throughout the years, even though I've added other channels like TikTok and Pinterest over time. I actually started my Instagram channel first because I knew how to do that quickly, just because of my previous experience. And I'm a firm believer that if you want to launch something, then you need to start creating content now, even if you're going to work through it and figure it out over time, which you'll see as I take you through the next 6 months of my journey. So I started with Instagram, and then I launched my first ever YouTube video, which I believe went live on the 15th of November. Now, I started my YouTube channel using my mobile phone. I had no microphone. I bought a ring light from Amazon, and I edited my own videos using iMovie, and then I moved on to DaVinci Resolve. And I used those simply because it was free. Like, your girl was on a budget. I was trying to get this going for as little money as possible. And before you ask, no, I did not have any editing experience. I very much just looked up tutorials on YouTube and just played around with the different platforms and tried to make it work. Now, one of the most important things that I did in my first month of this business is that I set myself a commitment goal. So a commitment goal is essentially when you tell yourself that you are going to commit to something for a set period of time and you outline what that commitment is going to look like. So I've spoken about this before, but my commitment goal was that I was going to post content on YouTube consistently. For me at the time, that meant 1 long form video per week. There weren't even shorts at that time. So wild to think about because it's only 4 years ago, but it feels like a different era. So anyway, I committed to sharing 1 full YouTube video per week for at least 12 months. And I told myself that I was not allowed to skip a week, or I was not allowed to quit my YouTube journey until I had gotten to that 12-month mark. I set myself that goal because I knew that one of the biggest reasons why this business wouldn't work would be simply because I would quit. That's one of the biggest reasons why most people don't see success in this field, is because they quit too early. You guys have probably seen this image being shared on socials before. before. I refer back to this image on like a weekly basis. It's really ingrained in my mind. It's of someone who's like mining for gold, and there's two people. One person turns around just before they get it and the other person keeps going. I feel like that image just sums up why it's so important to have a commitment goal, because honestly, if you keep going at something and you dedicate time and effort to improve the content you're creating, you will eventually get to the point where you reach your goal. You just need to make sure you don't quit. So anyway, that was my commitment goal. I started sharing content on YouTube and we were off to the races. Now, obviously in November 2020, I'd only just launched. So you're probably thinking I wasn't making any money moves just yet, but you would be wrong. I actually immediately started joining affiliate programs and including affiliate links in my content from day one. And I did this because I had faith that my content would start to perform really well in the future. And I knew that if that was the case, people would be able to find my older videos and find affiliate links in the description box or in my link in bio. So even though I wasn't accepted to a lot of affiliate programs because my audience was non-existent, I still tried to find ones that would accept me, and I started to use affiliate links wherever I could. You might be wondering how I found the time to launch my YouTube channel, my Instagram channel, and this overall brand in November 2020. Well, I was working full time, but I was working from home because again, of that big thing that happened in 2020. Let's just call it the big C. Because of the big C, I was working from home, and also I had no social plans because we weren't able to go out and meet friends and stuff. So I actually had more time than usual. So at this time in my journey, I was dedicating one full day a week, which was usually Sunday, to do all of my prepping, my filming, and my editing for all of my social content. And that was enough for me at the time. And if you're starting out on your journey, that will probably be enough for you just to get started too. All right, so it's now December 2020. It's Christmas, bells are ringing. No one is cheerful because of the big C, which basically cancelled Christmas because no one could see their families. But let's not reminisce on the bad times. In December 2020, my content was all over the place. I knew that I wanted to create content about marketing and branding, but those are still pretty general and broad topics. So I found myself creating content that was about e-commerce, also about branding, but also about influencing. It was a bit all over the place and it was very varied. And a lot of those videos are still live on my YouTube channel, and all of that content is still on my Instagram. So if you wanted to scroll and have a look, you're more than welcome to do so. It was a bit all over the place. And you know what? That's okay.
It's fine.
When you're starting out on your journey, if you don't know exactly what route you want to go down, it's okay to share content that's varied, because later on down the line, you'll be able to reflect on that content and actually figure out which content performs best for you and which content you enjoy to create the most. And that is exactly what I did, but I'll tell you a bit about that later. I was trying to improve my content quality at the time. I wasn't doing a great job at it. I was still doing this thing where I'd look at my phone lens, so my eyes would be like there rather than there. And I did that for a while. It took me a while to break out of that habit. But you know what? It was early days. It was all about testing, learning, and improving, and that's okay. Around this time, I had a few hundred people following me on Instagram. A lot of those people were friends and family. And on YouTube, my content was averaging like 700 views a month. So we're still very much in our early days, right? Did not stop me from making another money move though. So far, I already have a few affiliate links embedded. They're not getting any traffic because my content's not getting many views, but that's okay. But then in December, I actually decided to launch an email list. So in order for me to do this, I created this quiz, which would tell you whether or not you were ready to become an influencer. So people would complete this quiz and they would sometimes give me their email address. So I was gaining 10, 20 email subscribers through this quiz. The reason why I started to build my email list was partly because of my marketing background. I knew that this would be a really important marketing channel for me, but also because I was getting ready to launch my first ever digital product the next month. That's right, guys. I only had a couple hundred people in my audience, but here I was creating my first digital product. Was I a bit delulu? Yes. And do you know what? So should you be. In the early stages, we're naive, we're delusional, and it's beautiful because that is what drives us to take risks and to create things which in hindsight are probably the wrong time to create them or really difficult to create, but you just do it anyway because you're so delusional and you have no idea how hard anything is. It's a beautiful time. So anyway, I started to work on my first ebook. It was called the Influencer Hustle Kit, and I was getting ready to launch that the next month in January. Now, you might be wondering how I found the time to create an ebook because I'm still working full time at this point. And it was around the second month where I started to dedicate the entire weekend to this. So I started to work on my social media content and on my ebook on both Saturday and Sunday. I would still make time to go for walks because remember, that was all we could do at the time. I'd still make time to go for walks with my now husband and blah, blah, blah. So there was a bit of balance. But yeah, I was was pretty much spending my whole weekend working on this business. All right, before we move into month 3, when things really start to kick it up a gear, I want to take a quick break to talk about something which I wish I used in the early days of my journey, because oh my God, I would have reached my end goal so much quicker. I want to talk to you about Storyblocks. Storyblocks is a stock media subscription service which has a vast library of images, videos, audio, and sound effects. It provides access to unlimited royalty-free assets for creators and businesses to enhance their projects without having to worry about copyright issues or extra costs. Now, I know, just as well as you do, how difficult it could be to continuously create content which is high quality and to do it at scale. The demands for us as creators and businesses to create amazing content which resonates with our audience on a weekly basis, honestly, is through the roof, and sometimes it can feel like a lot of pressure. One way for you to alleviate that pressure is to use Storyblocks library to source different images, photos, audio, and sound effects to really bring your content and your creative vision to life. In addition to providing a huge library of assets for you to use in your video content, Storyblocks also prides themselves on being super easy to use. So it's really easy to search for the assets that you use. It's easy to use them for editing all the way through to publishing your content. You can also save time by accessing Storyblocks' entire library in Premiere Pro and After Effects, if those are the platforms that you use to create your content, using their plugin for Adobe Creative Cloud. Another thing that I love about Storyblocks, which I really feel like sets them apart from other similar services, is that they frequently refresh their library. This means that you can always rely on Storyblocks to have the audio, the visual, the sound effects assets that will fit your own aesthetic and that will also be super diverse. They're committed to ensuring better representation throughout their collections, and also they compensate all of their artists fairly, which is obviously super important. Now, what you really need to know is that Storyblocks offers unlimited downloads of diverse high quality media for one monthly cost. So you no longer have to pay per clip. You know, when you want to use something and then you have to pay for it, and then you want to use something else, you got to pay for it then. No, you literally pay a monthly predictable subscription cost, and that will give you access to the entire library. So we're talking over 1 million pieces of 4K and HD footage, templates, music, sound effects, images, and loads more. You can save hours of time using their pre-made motion graphic templates, which can be edited directly in your favorite editing program, whether that's After Effects, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, which I mentioned previously, Apple Motion, etc. So if you feel like joining either their monthly or annual subscription plan, head to storyblocks.com/Jade Beeson. The link is also in my description. All right, so we're now at month 3. Month 3 was January 2021, and this is when I started to make some changes to my social media strategy, and this is roughly the time where you might want to start doing the same. So in terms of my Instagram account, I started to share more photos of myself, and these were actually repurposed photos from one of my older accounts that I used to run. So your girl has been repurposing content for a very long time. When it comes to my YouTube though, I made a significant change, and this change was regarding how I sourced the topics for my videos. Up until this point, I was creating videos about topics that I just felt interested in. I would sit down and think, okay, what do I want to talk about this week? And then sometimes I would do a quick search on YouTube to see if any other content exists and if it performed well in the past. And if it passed that very simple, very useless check, I would be like, okay, great, I'm going to go film a video about it. The reason why I say this check was useless is because you can search for almost anything on YouTube and find a video that is related to that topic that has performed well. Just because it's performed well at some point doesn't mean it's going to perform well for you. Maybe that was a really popular topic 5 years ago. Maybe that video performed well because the person who created it has millions of subscribers. I wasn't taking in any of these considerations, and I was just looking at these videos and thinking, well, someone made a video about this 5 years ago and it did well, so surely mine will do well too. And that really never worked for me. In January though, I started to be a bit more strategic, and I started to create YouTube videos that I believed were about trending topics. So I would go to YouTube, I would search for the topic I wanted to talk about that week, and instead of just taking the results at face value, I would filter the results. So I would look at any videos that were shared about that topic within the last year. I would look at the creators of those videos to see, did they have a huge audience? Was that why that topic performed well? And I would use these different signals to select video topics that I thought would actually take off. And spoiler alert, it worked. In the month of January, my channel got 4,000 views versus the 700 views that it got the month before. So this was really the turning point where my social content started to take off. As you might recall, this was also the month where I launched my first digital product. It was my ebook, and it was all about influencing. Now, when I launched it, I made about £200 to £300, which I think is pretty good when you consider the fact that I literally had 800 people in my audience, split between YouTube, which had like 250 subscribers at the time, and Instagram, which had a few more followers. So I actually think that's pretty impressive. A lot of that was down to the fact that I had started to grow an email list the month before. I had maybe 70 people on my email list at the time. It wasn't huge, but it was enough for me to get a few sales and to start to earn an income, which was great. As you can probably guess, things are starting to get busier. My time management skills are starting to be really pushed to the limit. Not only am I now working every Saturday and Sunday, but I've started to work some early mornings too. So in my old job, I used to start work at 9:30. So I would wake up at 5 and then work until like 9. And then I'd get ready for half an hour and then I'd start my office job. So around this time, I started to do that like once or twice a week in addition to Saturday and Sunday. You might think to yourself, that sounds like too much work. That sounds like a lot. But honestly, by this point, I was so committed and I was starting to see results. And hold on to your seats, because whilst you're probably thinking those results aren't enough to make you want to work that much, soon I would start to really reap the rewards of how much effort I was putting into this brand. Before we get there though, let's move on to the next month, which was February 2021. Now, I didn't make any major changes to my social media strategy at this point because I just made a change. Now, this feels like the appropriate time to share a little nugget of wisdom. I don't like saying that because it makes me sound like I'm being condescending. I don't know, just like a tip with you guys that I've consistently stuck to since the beginning of my social media brand. Now, the tip is that if you're going to make any significant changes to your social media content or to your strategy, you need to stick with those changes for at least a couple of months. You need to give yourself enough time to really trial whatever changes you're making, because it's hard to know what's really working until you've given it a good amount of time for it to actually work. So I had just made some big changes to my strategy in the previous month, so I wasn't about to make some major changes in this month either. What did change this month though was that I introduced another income stream. Your girl is adding one like once a month at this point. This was when I started to coach. This was when I had my first inbound inquiry from someone who followed me who said, hey, can you hop on a call for an hour? I will pay you. I just want to pick your brain. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I didn't know what to charge. So I think I charged £50 at the time. I was like, yeah, sure, 50 quid, like let's go for it, right? We went ahead and we had a call. This was the beginning of a huge monetization strategy for me. This was when I started to create products and services purely based on what people were asking from me. So if someone commented saying you should offer audits, I would create audits. You should create a course, I would create a course. It is worth noting that that has changed ever so slightly now. I've been very fortunate to be able to take a step back, restructure my business, and really only offer things that really align with my future goals. But when you're in the early stages and you're trying to earn an income and you're trying to figure out what you enjoy creating and what you don't enjoy creating, doing it based on audience demand is the best way for you to do it. By this point, I'm starting to earn between £500 to £1,000 per month. And that is from a variety of different places. It's from affiliates, from coaching, and from my ebook. I'm not yet monetized on YouTube. Also, as you've probably guessed, I'm starting to spend even more time on this. Things were really starting to take over my life at this point. I was now working from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. pretty much every single day of the week, and then also working Saturday and Sunday. This was still a time where the big C was running rampant. So obviously I didn't have a lot of social obligations anyway, but even if I did, I would do them during the evenings during the week, or maybe in the mornings of the weekend. I always found ways to still see my friends and family because that was the only way that I would remain sane during this intense period of work, because as a reminder, I'm still working full time. And I think this was the time where I actually got promoted. So I got promoted and I was reporting directly into our CEO. So my job got harder, and so did this brand that I was building. So things were getting stressful. Fortunately for me though, this next month was about to prove just how much of an impact all of this time and energy was about to have on my life. So let's move on to March 2021. Guys, this month, things were starting to happen. This is what my analytics looked like in March 2021. Yes, the views have increased. Yes, the subscribers, the watch hours, but look at what's happening towards the end of that month. What you're seeing right there is the beginning of my channel's blow up. And that is purely a result of me riding through my trial and error phase for the first few months of my journey and then refining my strategy from that point onwards. In addition to focusing on trending topics, another thing that I started to do around this time was I started to niche down slightly. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to niche down. I have a whole video about what to do if you want to niche down versus not niching down. What I do want to say though is that I decided to niche down, and I did that because I was noticing that some topics were performing better than others. So things about social media, things about content creation and influencing, those topics were performing better, but also I preferred to talk about them. I was more interested in these subjects and I found myself gravitating towards these subjects anyway. So I decided to double down. Another very notable thing happened is, you guessed it, a new income stream. This time, partnerships. You're probably thinking, how did you get partnerships when you had like under 1,000 subscribers? Well, I did. I pitched a brand. I negotiated a 3-month deal for £1,000. I know. And I negotiated it based on my channel's projections. Or this is what I mean about Delulu. Your girl had confidence. I was like, look, I know I only have, 700 subscribers right now, but I'm gaining 300 a month. So in 6 months' time, when your content is still live, I will probably have this many subscribers. In my defense, I was right. And that content performed really well for that brand. So it was a real win-win, but was that a ballsy move? I was super stressed at this time. March was when I was starting to lose grip on a few things. I was approaching burnout for sure, because you remember that I'm working on this pretty much every day of the week now, and I'm still working full time in a new role that was more senior and very challenging. And I was struggling, and I was really starting to question my full-time job. I was starting to wonder how long I could keep this up for and what it would take for me to quit my full-time job and go full-time. Little did I know, the time for me to quit my full-time job was rapidly approaching. But before we get there, let's talk about the most significant month in my entire content creation career to date. We're talking about April 2021. I just realized that was literally, it's May now, but that was literally like 3 years ago today, which is so crazy because how much can change. This was the month where genuinely my life changed. I had no idea at the time, but my life was about to change. Coincidentally, this was also the month where I got the most ill that I have ever been in my entire life. I was sick for pretty much this entire month, bedbound, like in and out of hospital, really sick. So all of these things were happening behind the scenes. And the reason why these things were happening and I was able to reach some of the milestones that I'm about to share with you was thanks to batching. I talk about batching my content, which basically means I create my content in advance and I schedule it to go live without me having to lift a finger. I talk about that all the time. And guys, this is why I was sick the whole month of April, but still had content going live and even starting to go semi-viral. It was wild. So a lot of the action was happening over on my YouTube channel. My Instagram was like ticking along in the background. You might remember that this is what my stats looked like the month prior. Well, this is what they looked like in April 2021. I went from 7,000 to 76,000 views. And you'll notice that there's some money added to the screen. And that's because towards the end of April 2021, I got monetized. I reached 4,000 watch hours. I had 1,000 subscribers and I was able to start earning money through YouTube, which, you guessed it guys, is another income stream that I've just added just 5 months after starting my social media channels. So now I'm making between 1,000 to 2,000 per month through this business, and I'm starting to stockpile that money. I'm doing things like paying off credit card debt. I'm saving for my emergency fund, because whilst all these amazing things are happening, I'm aware that this is not sustainable. And at some point, something's got to give. And at this time, I'm becoming convinced that that thing will need to be my full-time job. We're at the final month now. Let's talk about what happened in May, which got me to the point where I was ready to quit my job the next month, which was June 2021. So in May, my Instagram gained a few thousand followers, and that was mostly due to this. This is a screenshot of my analytics in May. Yes, they look very different from the month before. In fact, my view count had increased by over 100,000 and my first paycheck on YouTube was over £1,600, which is wild because I didn't have that many subscribers. To make that much money on your first full month of being monetized on YouTube is just absolutely wild. This meant that all of my income streams were now making me between £4,000 to £5,000 per month. And as I mentioned, I was stockpiling a lot of that because I had officially decided that it was time for me to quit my job.
I quit.
So I actually handed in my notice the next month and I had a 2-month notice period, which is super common in the UK. I already knew all of this. So whilst I had already started to save an emergency fund, I knew that I'd have at least 2 to 3 more months to continue saving for that before I actually stopped earning from my full-time job. So that really helped me. A huge caveat that I will say here is, whilst I'm so glad I made that decision, it was a wild decision, but it was the best decision I've ever made. I don't know if I'd make the same decision if I was going through a similar scenario right now. I quit my job when I had a 3-month runway. So I had 3 months of confirmed income, right? And I had a 3-month emergency fund. At the time, that felt like more than enough. Right now, I feel like I would recommend having at least 6 months of confirmed income and a 6-month emergency fund. I dive into this a little bit deeper in this video if you want to find out a bit more information. But things are different now to what they were like in 2021. And I need to be self-aware and make that clear that I probably wouldn't make the same decision now. But it was the right decision at the time. And that was it. I handed in my notice in June 2021, and by August, I was working for myself as a full-time content creator. I have thoroughly enjoyed reminiscing on that journey and really putting out the key decisions that I made to help me get to that point. One of the most important caveats that you have to be aware of is the fact that my background is in marketing. So whilst you completely have the ability to do everything that I've just described, it's okay for it to feel overwhelming. I talk about this stuff like it was easy to me. It wasn't. It's just that I had experience, so I very much had a leg up. I'm going to link to a bunch of masterclasses, templates, resources that I've created, which will help you achieve all of the things that I mentioned in today's video. You can get access to all of them in addition to 70 more and a creator community. When you join my membership, The Collective, I will put a link in the description. Speaking of links in my description, do not forget to check out Storyblocks if you want access to all of their incredible assets to really improve your video content. If you feel like hanging around, I recommend watching this video. It's all about how much YouTube paid me in the year of 2023. Thank you so much for watching as always. I can't wait to see you in my next video.